At 11:59 a.m. on July 15th, an urgent call shattered the vibrant summer air in Monterey, California. A panicked, trembling voice came through the line. "Emergency at Ocean Haven. Trainer down. Killer whale attacking her. Please, we need help now." The dispatcher heard screams, splashing water, and chaotic sounds in the background, like a sudden storm erupting. A performance meant to showcase the harmony between humans and animals had turned into an unimaginable tragedy. This is the story of Sarah Bennett, a gifted killer whale trainer whose final moments forever changed the marine entertainment industry, leaving a legacy both heartbreaking and inspiring. Sarah Bennett was more than a trainer at Ocean Haven, the renowned marine amusement park nestled along Monterey's coastline. She embodied a fierce, almost sacred love for the ocean. Born in Cannon Beach, Oregon, a small town with endless sandy shores and rugged cliffs embracing the Pacific, Sarah grew up to the lullaby of crashing waves. The briny scent of the sea infused every breath, and winds carrying the ocean's essence shaped her childhood. From a young age, Sarah was captivated by the ocean. While her peers built sandcastles or lost themselves in video games, Sarah spent hours on the cliffs, her eyes gleaming as she watched pods of humpback whales migrate through the deep blue. Her mother, Ellen, a kind-hearted elementary school teacher, often recalled how, at age 5, Sarah brought home a tattered notebook filled with clumsy drawings of killer whales, paired with detailed notes on their behavior meticulously copied from Discovery Channel documentaries. By 10, Sarah had taught herself to mimic killer whale vocalizations, high-pitched, melodic, complex sounds she learned from scientific recordings her nature-loving father brought home from the local library. She'd stand on the beach, her small feet buried in cold sand, facing the vast ocean, and emit those calls, as if sending messages to creatures she'd never met. Neighbors called her the Whale Girl, a nickname Sarah wore with pride throughout her childhood. They said that sometimes, at windy sunsets, they'd see her alone by the shore, singing wordless songs, as if the ocean were whispering secrets only they shared. At 16, Sarah became a volunteer at the Oregon Marine Rescue Center, a place she called her second home. She worked tirelessly, scrubbing frigid tanks and preparing food for injured seals and sea turtles. She documented animal behaviors with astonishing care, asking sharp questions that caught the attention of seasoned scientists. "Why would a seal refuse sardines today but eat them yesterday?" she'd ask, her voice brimming with curiosity. "How do you know when a dolphin is stressed, and can they sense our emotions?" Robert, a silver-haired biologist with a keen gaze, once remarked, "That girl's not just curious. She has an instinct, like she understands animals in a way books can't teach." At 24, Sarah graduated with honors from the University of California, Santa Cruz, with a degree in marine biology and a groundbreaking thesis. Her research on the impact of captivity on killer whales' social intelligence was hailed by professors as profound, inspiring, and revolutionary. She analyzed how captive killer whales lost the complex family bonds that define them in the wild, and how isolation could trigger abnormal behaviors. One professor wrote in a recommendation letter, "Sarah is not just a scientist. She's a storyteller who brings the heart of the ocean to every page of her work, but what set Sarah apart wasn't her academic achievements. It was her almost otherworldly ability to connect with marine animals, especially killer whales, massive, intelligent, emotional creatures dubbed the ocean's storytellers." When she joined Ocean Haven's training staff right after graduation, her colleagues quickly noticed something extraordinary. Sarah seemed to share a secret language with the killer whales. They responded to her subtle gestures, a gentle wave, a soft glance, and sometimes nudged her gently with their long snouts, a sign of trust. "I've never seen killer whales respond to anyone the way they did with Sarah," said Tom, a veteran trainer with 15 years of experience. "She didn't just give commands. She communicated, like they were having a conversation we couldn't hear." Ocean Haven was Sarah's dream come true. She rose quickly, becoming one of the park's most respected killer whale trainers. Visitors remembered her name, not just for the spectacular performances she led, but for her radiant smile and evident dedication. New interns saw her as a mentor, a role model. They said Sarah always made time to explain, guide, and inspire, even on the busiest days. One intern, Anna, shared, "Sarah didn't just teach us how to train. She taught us how to listen, to respect the creatures we worked with." But Sarah wasn't just a star on stage. Behind the spotlight, she was a quiet advocate, tirelessly pushing for better living conditions for the killer whales. She proposed mentally stimulating activities like underwater games and floating toys, lobbied for larger tanks, and often debated management for more humane treatment. In one meeting, she stood up, her voice firm. "We can't call this conservation if we treat them like assets. They're individuals with emotions, memories, and a right to a better life." Her words ruffled some managers, but her colleagues, especially Miguel, always had her back. "They're not tools," she once told Miguel during a lunch break, sitting by the shimmering tank under the California sun. "They're partners. We owe them respect, not just for us, but for them." Sarah knew killer whales were more than the ocean's fearsome predators. They had long memories, deep emotions, and psychological wounds humans rarely noticed. She'd read about wild killer whales living in tight-knit pods, traveling hundreds of miles, and communicating with unique songs. She understood that the marine entertainment world, with its bright smiles and perfect leaps, hid a more complex reality, one of confinement, stress, and unmet needs. Yet even with this profound awareness, Sarah never imagined that her burning passion would lead to a tragic end, a moment that would force the world to rethink how humans treat the creatures she cherished. Ocean Haven was a symbol of humanity's fascination with the ocean, a modern marvel along Monterey's coast. Spanning 60 acres, the park was a labyrinth of shimmering artificial lagoons, state-of-the-art theaters seating thousands, and meticulously designed areas mimicking the ocean's pristine beauty. Each year, millions of visitors from around the globe flocked here, chasing dreams of magical encounters with marine life. The centerpiece was the Ocean Symphony, an electrifying show where killer whales performed breathtaking acrobatics, surfed alongside trainers, and engaged audiences in heart-stopping moments. Behind massive glass walls and artificial waves, the killer whales executed routines with astonishing precision. They leapt into the air, spun in perfect arcs, and splashed the crowd, prompting cheers from children and gasps from adults. Kids in the front rows, eyes wide, would recount tales of dancing whales for years. Families left the stands smiling, feeling they'd witnessed a miracle, a testament to harmony between humans and nature. But behind the applause and stage lights lay a long, complex history, blending dazzling beauty with darker shadows. Ocean Haven's killer whale program began over 3 decades ago, when capturing wild killer whales was still legal in waters off Norway and Iceland. Early shows were simple, showcasing strength and obedience, whales jumping through hoops, nudging balls, or splashing spectators. Audiences were captivated by their size and power, and parks like Ocean Haven quickly saw their commercial potential. Over time, performances grew intricate. Trainers began entering the water, riding dorsal fins, and performing synchronized ballet-like routines. They kissed whales' snouts and hugged them for cameras, crafting an image of perfect friendship between humans and the ocean's fiercest predators. But the public didn't see the immense pressure on both humans and animals to sustain this illusion. Trainers worked in high-stress conditions, ensuring flawless routines while handling creatures with superior strength and unpredictable intelligence. The whales, though well-fed, lived in tanks tiny compared to the vast oceans they once roamed. Among Ocean Haven's killer whales, one stood out: Poseidon, a massive 12,000-pound male. Captured off Norway as a calf, Poseidon had spent over 22 years in captivity. At 24 feet long, with a broad dorsal fin and deep scars from dominance disputes, he embodied power and mystery. Trainers described Poseidon as frighteningly intelligent, but moody and unpredictable. He could nail a routine one day and ignore signals the next. He'd been involved in minor incidents, disobeying commands, acting agitated, or showing territorial behavior in the tank. Once, he pushed a trainer against the tank wall, fortunately without serious injury. These incidents were documented in internal reports, but rarely disclosed publicly. Ocean Haven's management insisted Poseidon was a star, and incidents were mere misunderstandings. Marine behavior experts had long warned that captive male killer whales could develop behavioral abnormalities. In the wild, they travel up to 100 miles daily, live in tight-knit pods, and maintain complex social bonds. They hunt, communicate with unique songs, and uphold distinct pod traditions. In concrete tanks, isolated from natural stimuli and often in artificial pods, frustration built like a ticking time bomb. Dr. Rachel Coleman, a renowned marine biologist who once consulted for Ocean Haven, said, "When you confine a killer whale, you're not just caging its body, you're caging its mind, and sometimes it breaks." Despite warnings, Poseidon remained the soul of Ocean Symphony. He drew crowds with towering leaps, dramatic surfing, and an enigmatic allure. But in the weeks before the fateful day, subtle signs emerged. Poseidon often floated listlessly, his eyes distant. He responded less to trainers' cues. He yawned his jaws more frequently, a behavior biologists link to agitation or dominance. These signs were subtle, easily overlooked in the park's frenetic pace. But they were there, like small ripples signaling a coming storm. On July 15th, Monterey's sky was clear, not a cloud in sight. Ocean Haven buzzed with excitement as thousands of visitors filled the stands for the noon Ocean Symphony show. Families jostled for seats, kids clutching balloons and melting ice cream, eager for the moment the killer whales would soar. Backstage, Sarah Bennett prepared with the focus and calm of someone who'd done this thousands of times. She checked her list, briefed fellow trainers, and stood by the tank's thick glass, watching Poseidon swim slowly, deliberately. Something in Poseidon's eyes that day, a strange stillness, as if he saw through her, made Sarah's heart skip. But she brushed it off. She'd worked with Poseidon for over a decade. They understood each other, or so she believed. She donned her blue wetsuit, zipped it neatly, tied her hair up, and clipped on her headset. At 11:46 a.m., Sarah stepped onto the tank's platform, flashing a radiant smile at the crowd. The stands erupted in cheers as Poseidon leaped from the water, arcing perfectly and soaking the front rows. Kids squealed, pointing excitedly. Parents smiled, phones raised to capture the moment. The show began smoothly, like a well-rehearsed symphony. Poseidon executed flips, surfed, and splashed with stunning precision. But small cracks appeared. He hesitated on 2 consecutive cues, once when asked to push a ball, then when signaled to slide onto a platform. He lagged, almost reluctant, unusual for a whale known for professionalism. His tail slaps were harder, sending deep vibrations through the water like a warning. Trainers on the tank's edge, including Sarah's close friend Miguel, exchanged uneasy glances. "Something's off," Miguel whispered to a colleague. But he didn't dare interrupt the show. Sarah noticed too, but pressed on. She knew Poseidon had off days, and she trusted their bond to carry them through. She guided him with practiced motions, fish rewards, and calm body language. Their relationship, built over a decade, was her strength. It made her confident, perhaps too confident. At 11:58 a.m., the show reached a familiar routine, a close interaction where Sarah stood on a submerged platform, face to face with Poseidon. It was a crowd favorite, a symbol of trust between a human and the ocean's fiercest predator. Sarah extended her hand, signaling a side swim, where Poseidon would glide beside her, letting her touch his flank in a brief, emotional moment. According to witness Ellen Harper, seated in Section C and filming for her grandson, Sarah gave the cue. But then, everything changed. Poseidon dove beneath the surface, vanishing into the blue. A second later, he resurfaced, but off position. He was misaligned. Without warning, Poseidon lunged, his jaws closing around Sarah's left arm, yanking her into the water with terrifying force. The crowd gasped, a chaotic mix of horror and confusion. Some, especially children, thought it was part of the show, a staged stunt for drama. But others, particularly trainers and perceptive spectators, knew something was wrong. Beneath the surface, a violent struggle began. Trainers on the deck scrambled, activating emergency signals. Underwater sounds meant to distract Poseidon and disrupt his behavior. But he ignored them. He held Sarah underwater, thrashing, spinning, diving to the tank's bottom. Seconds stretched into eternity. 1 minute passed, then 2. Rescue protocols kicked in. Staff raced to close the tank's emergency gates to isolate Poseidon. Others threw nets and floating barriers, trying to corner him. But Poseidon, with the strength and cunning of a creature hardened by decades in captivity, evaded every attempt. Miguel, who saw Sarah as a sister, tried luring Poseidon with a bucket of fish and familiar calls from the adjacent medical pool. "Poseidon, come here! Come on, buddy!" he shouted, his voice breaking with panic. But Poseidon didn't respond. He surfaced briefly, revealing deep black eyes, then dove again, still gripping Sarah. The crowd grew frantic. Some stood, grabbing their kids and rushing for exits. Others stood frozen, unable to look away from the swirling water, now a stormy vortex. As alarms blared, Ocean Haven descended into chaos. Trainers and rescuers fought desperately to free Sarah. By 12:03 p.m., the park's emergency dive team arrived, but strict safety rules barred them from entering the tank while Poseidon remained aggressive. They stood helpless on the platform, watching the water shift from turbulent to eerily still. Finally, at 12:08 p.m., Poseidon released Sarah. Her body floated to the surface, motionless, eyes closed as if in eternal sleep. Trainers dove in, pulling her to the platform. Medics began CPR immediately, but their faces betrayed despair. Miguel knelt beside her, tears streaming, whispering, "Sarah, please, wake up!" Spectators were ushered out amid children's sobs and adults' stunned gazes. Some still held phones, reflexively recording the horror. Sarah was pronounced dead at 12:23 p.m. In under 7 minutes, A storied career, a devoted life, and a decade-long bond had ended in irreversible violence. Ocean Haven was locked down. All shows were canceled indefinitely. The stands were cordoned off with yellow tape, and security was deployed to block media and curious onlookers. A brief, somber statement was released to the press before sunset. We are devastated to confirm the passing of one of our most experienced and beloved trainers, Sarah Bennett. Our hearts are with her family, friends, and the entire Ocean Haven team during this tragic time. We are fully cooperating with authorities to investigate the incident. But the world didn't stay silent. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an urgent investigation demanding Ocean Haven's internal records on Poseidon and past incidents. Federal wildlife management officials were called to assess captivity conditions. Veterinarians and behaviorists analyzed Poseidon's actions, while hours of show footage were scrutinized frame by frame. Internal reports surfaced, revealing a string of minor incidents involving Poseidon the public never knew. Ignored commands, agitation, and the time he pushed a trainer against the tank wall. The autopsy report, finalized within 48 hours, laid out brutal details. Sarah suffered severe trauma, blunt force injuries to her chest, abdomen, and neck, multiple broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and massive lung hemorrhaging. The official cause of death was drowning from prolonged submersion, but investigators noted that even without drowning, her internal injuries might have been fatal. These details leaked to the press within days, and public reaction exploded like a tidal wave. News outlets ran shocking headlines: "Killer whale kills veteran trainer," "Horror at Ocean Haven," "Ocean predator turns deadly." Clips of the show's joyful moments, kids laughing, Sarah waving, played on repeat, a painful reminder of trust's fragility. Commentators debated the ethics of animal performances. A former Ocean Haven trainer told the Los Angeles Times, "We warned about Poseidon for years. That whale showed clear stress signs. No one listened because he made too much money." Protests erupted outside the park hours after the tragedy. Hundreds held signs reading "Free the Orcas" and "End Ocean Slavery." Animal rights groups like the Marine Protection Alliance demanded the immediate release of all captive killer whales and the closure of marine parks. Memorials sprang up along the park's gates, fresh flowers, photos of Sarah, and handwritten letters. Some mourned a fallen trainer who lived for her passion. Others demanded change, seeing Sarah's death as proof of the marine entertainment industry's cruelty. The debate quickly outgrew a single incident. It became a flashpoint for bigger issues: animal rights, the ethics of captivity, and the line between entertainment and exploitation. Painful questions echoed across forums, TV shows, and social media. Could this tragedy have been prevented? If Poseidon showed instability, why was he still performing? And most crucially, why do humans keep confining intelligent social creatures like killer whales who need freedom to thrive? These questions had no easy answers, but they forced the world to confront an uncomfortable truth. The trust between humans and killer whales, however beautiful, always teetered on a fragile edge. Sarah Bennett's tragedy wasn't an isolated event, but part of a troubling pattern haunting marine parks for decades. The core question was simple yet contentious. Should killer whales, intelligent social predators who roam vast distances, be kept in captivity? For years, the marine entertainment industry confidently said yes. Shows were marketed as safe. Animals were declared well cared for. Trainers were portrayed as seasoned experts. But Sarah's attack, like those before it, shattered this illusion, exposing deep cracks in the system. 10 years earlier, in 2015, a Florida marine park trainer was killed by a male killer whale in a horrific incident before hundreds of spectators. It sparked a federal investigation, a shocking documentary, and a cultural crisis that shook the industry. That death became a symbol of a system pushed to its limits, where profits trumped safety and welfare. Now, a decade later, Sarah's death reopened old wounds and unresolved questions. Marine biologists have long warned of the psychological toll captivity takes on killer whales. In the wild, they lead rich, complex lives, traveling up to 100 miles daily, hunting in groups, communicating with unique dialects, and maintaining lifelong family bonds. They have culture, memory, and the capacity for grief. In tanks, their world shrinks to concrete walls, rigid feeding schedules, and performance routines that meet only a fraction of their intellectual and physical needs. A 2021 National Geographic article quoted former trainers describing captive killer whale environments as a pressure cooker. Stress, boredom, and social dysfunction often led to abnormal behaviors, self-harm, aggression toward other whales, and, in rare but catastrophic cases, attacks on humans. Dr. Emily Nguyen, a marine animal behavior expert, put it bluntly in an interview. "We've underestimated killer whales. They remember, they grieve, they plan, they get bored. And when they're bored, sometimes they snap. Not because they're monsters, but because they're sentient." The parallels between Sarah's death and prior incidents were striking. Attacked trainers were experienced, beloved by the animals, and worked at facilities warned of risks but kept operating. Complicating matters was the emotional bond trainers formed with killer whales. They didn't see them as ticking time bombs. They saw them as partners, as family. Many, including Sarah, said they'd willingly risk danger to work with the creatures they loved. But the public, viewing from outside, began to ask, should that risk exist? Why do humans keep placing intelligent social creatures in restrictive environments where they can't live as they're meant to? And crucially, why do we call it entertainment? These questions weren't new, but Sarah's death thrust them back into the spotlight, forcing the industry and public to face hard truths. It also underscored a painful reality. No matter how beautiful the bond between trainer and killer whale, it was built on a fragile foundation, one of control, confinement, and sometimes misunderstanding. Sarah Bennett's death was not just a personal loss, but a global wake-up call. In the weeks following the tragedy, Ocean Haven faced intense public and regulatory pressure. The park announced an indefinite suspension of all direct contact killer whale performances. Trainers shifted to dry platform interactions, issuing commands from a distance. Contact protocols were overhauled with input from independent experts. A new department was created to oversee mental stimulation and psychological health for the whales, with programs designed to mimic aspects of their natural environment. These changes, while welcomed by some, were seen by others as too late. They're only doing this because of public pressure, an animal rights activist said at a protest outside the park. If they truly cared, Sarah might still be alive. Despite the divide, Ocean Haven pressed forward with reforms. External consultants, including marine biologists, behaviorists, and even former critics, were brought in to design safer, more ethical training programs. The killer whale program, once the park's crown jewel, was scaled back significantly, with fewer shows and a stronger focus on education over pure entertainment. Sarah Bennett's story is a poignant reminder of the complex relationship between humans and the wild. It's the story of a woman who devoted her life to the creatures she loved. But it's also a story of power, captivity, and the thin line between trust and danger. Sarah's death forced the world to grapple with tough questions. Can true connection exist in a space built on control? Can we claim to love an animal while denying the freedom that defines its essence?